everyone, and welcome to another episode of our brand new podcast, The Rundown. We're your hosts. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Dinesha, and coming up are all things relating to anchoring tips, on-camera presence, and our own experience being in front of the camera.
All this and more coming up on today's episode, so make sure to stay tuned for more. Okay, Dinesha, so to start off today's rundown, we're going to be talking about some anchoring tips and just kind of things to know when you're on camera. So to start off, what is an anchor? So an anchor is the face of a show. They're the person who present all the news on TV. They give the audience all the information, and they report stories and give updates to the audience. So that's kind of the basis of what we do on camera. So today we kind of wanted just to give a little bit of information on like how we present ourselves, how we talk on camera, how we dress ourselves, and all that goes into anchoring. So if you want to start off with appearance.
Something I wanted to mention definitely is looking clean. You don't want to be too like messy to the point where it's distracting your story from being delivered to the audience. I think especially for like curly haired girls that like always find it difficult to maintain the frizz or something. I always like either I straighten my hair or curl my hair to kind of have that clean look, and like a lot of hairspray. Hairspray is very vital. I think even if you have curly hair, you can still like embrace that, have it clean looking, because if it's still like frizzy, you don't look clean, you look messy, and that can distract from your story. Same thing as makeup, like it can be super subtle, natural, still look clean. I think even guy anchors, they also use a lot of powder and like baking powder, like setting powder, just to like clean that oiliness that the camera picks up a lot.
The shininess.
And I think jewelry, I always say to keep it dainty, keep like nice, like little, like maybe one ring on each hand,
very dainty bracelet,
a small bracelet, a very little like necklace,
Yeah.
especially like for the rise. I tell like all the anchors like very strict about it. Nails, especially for girls.
Yes, 100%. If it's like a super neon color, then people are going to be looking at your nails. They're not going to be looking at like, they're not going to be taking you seriously, because I think one of the most important things, if you're the one on camera, you're the one presenting yourself.
Yeah, the look represents your brand.
Yeah, and you have to think like, okay, I want the audience to take me seriously. I want them to understand the information that I'm saying. So it's important to look presentable. It's important that you're wearing like very muted colors and stuff like that for certain things. If I think like, for example, your nails being like neon green or something, people are going to be distracted by that. So sometimes I always recommend you just like that like clean look,
short pastel, white, nudes, very like simple colors.
A lot of news anchors wear professional clothes. Like during the rise, we wear like the blazers and the bodysuits. During the flare, we all have like the red polos, because that looks good on camera. Like instead of like having we have white and red polos, but we wear strictly red on camera just because it makes you look better. The white sometimes flushes you out. So yeah, and then like the grooming and makeup that you said, just to have clean nails, dainty jewelry, makeup, make sure that you don't look like shiny on camera and all of that. I think first impressions are very important, and it's important that you look presentable so that your audience will listen to you and trust what you have to say.
And something I want to add on why we have that different like style, the attire, especially like the rise, it's like our like serious show per se, like every week. That's like the Friday show that we love to take care of. We take care of every show, but especially the flare, I think what you wear kind of represents what kind of show you're like delivering. The rise, it's something very like serious, versus the flare, it's something very conversational with our audience. It's something like you want to keep relatable with your like the students here at Doral. It's something like everyday, like hi, like a quick conversation with like the students, and I guess the photos can show how casual the flare is versus the rise.
I agree.
I also wanted to dive into tone. Definitely tone.
When on camera presence. Yeah, for sure.
When you're anchoring, whether it's like a serious theme show, like maybe a holiday, 9/11, like you want to keep that serious tone, and like when you're delivering a message that is not like, oh, welcome to our entertainment segment or something. You kind of want to stay serious and know especially what you're saying. I think every anchor, even if you don't write, do your research, know what you're talking about. Especially like know what you're saying. You don't want to look stupid either. Like especially if it comes with like a tradition or a certain holiday or something, you don't want to say something that's wrong.
For sure.
Tone, especially the way you deliver things, like it definitely touches the audience in like different
It's really
ways,
important.
yeah.
Another thing going off of what she's saying on camera presence is your body language. So your posture is really important. The way that you use your hands is really important. I say every time we film something like sitting down, like make sure that you're sitting properly. We use the term like butt in a cup, like sit up. Don't be like slouching down or anything. Also like avoid crossing your arms. That's another thing. Like make sure that you're using your gestures, you're using your hands, and that is used to like emphasize, not where it looks like super like kind of tense, but like you're like emphasizing your words. Let's say you're like saying two things, you can go like one and
Yeah.
two, you know what I mean? But just
Yeah, I
to
was
kind
always
of
taught like to use hands because that's like
Yeah.
your hands also speak with you. But also I want to like add in like speaking slow. I think a
Yes,
lot of
the
people
tone.
struggle with like speaking fast, like kind of like the
Clear
words not
speech.
coming out. And I
Yeah.
think I've always had a problem with like pronunciation because I'm such a fast together. Like I feel like I don't have space sometimes.
In between
So
your-
that's something that I've had to learn with anchoring. I always tell like my anchors like read your script, know how to pronounce the word. If it doesn't roll off the tongue, then like
Yeah.
you change it for another word that you know or a phrase maybe even. But especially like slow speaking and like really pronouncing your words show like, you know,
Yeah, for
professional.
sure. Another thing is eye contact with the camera. Like make sure that you're always looking at the camera. You're not like looking off to the side. You want to connect with your viewers, your audience. So making sure to like always be looking at the camera. And I think my most important thing to kind of wrap off this segment is like wrap up this segment. I don't know why I said wrap off. Wrap up this segment would be to have confidence. That's the most important thing when we're anchoring is to like if you feel good, then it's gonna show, and that's super important. So with confidence comes knowing your script, knowing the information. If
Yeah.
we're delivering news and you don't know what it like specifically it is that you're talking about, I think you kind of just like get lost, especially on live, on air. Like if something happens with your teleprompter or something where it just goes wrong, you don't know what you're talking about.
No, to like finesse in a way.
exactly.
Like
Yeah.
especially for live shows, if it's like some like words you skipped over, you kind of have to improv. And that's such a thing in anchoring. You need to know what you get like have to say like when it comes to mistakes like that.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say that's like the number one tip when it comes to anchoring is having confidence, be prepared, and feel good about yourself. So I think that kind of we end off this segment and go into the next one, which is gonna be all about writing.
Let's go. Well, diving into our next segment are some writing tips.
Yeah.
This definitely plays into anchoring your show and the delivery of the show and like the message that you want to give to your audience. So, Sarah, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I think kind of like the basis of writing would be gathering your information, knowing your story. So for starters, you need to know who your subject is, you need to know your language, and you need to know your audience. So by that I mean know your subject, know what it is that you're talking about, who it is that you're talking about, know your language. So like let's say you're talking about like a law firm or something, like know like the vocab that like goes with that. And for your audience, like know who it is that you're talking to, know who it is. Like in our school, we do daily announcements. Our audience are the students, are the people that go to the school. So we have to keep that into consideration when we write our stories and our scripts and all of that. Even make packages and stuff, like that all plays into the school and knowing
Yeah.
that that's our audience. So that's a really important thing. Another thing that is important to keep in mind when writing a script and gathering your information are the 5 W's of journalism. So it's who, what, when, where, and why. So who your subject is, what it is that you're talking about, when did it happen, where did it happen, and why it happened. So that's kind of a good basis to start off. Like let's say you have an article that you're going to turn into a story, kind of write like who your subject is, what, and all of that, and then
We've
turn it
known
into
this
like
since like eighth
Yeah,
grade with
for
Miss
sure.
Tia. Something we like started off when it comes to writing stories.
Yeah,
that-
and we do it to this day.
Yeah,
We
current
do
events.
current events in both V's and Diaz's class where we just like kind of stay up to date with the news that are going on and use these 5 W's and kind of write a little summary, and that just helps you with writing stories.
Yeah.
And one last thing would be they call it like the CRAP test, the CRAAP test. And that just talks about the currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose of your information. So those are just kind of checks that I have like when I'm writing to make sure that like my story makes sense. So like the currency and the timeliness of the information, the relevance, the importance of the story, the information, and all of that, the authority, accuracy, and the purpose of why it is that you have this article, have this story, and why it is that you're delivering it. So
I also wanted to add language. I think we love to lean into, and especially when it comes to like writing in school or like an essay, we love to lean into like the smart vocab,
Yeah.
the fancy adjectives, and I
Yeah.
love them. I love like, you know, making like spicing up the script. I love to do that. Yet when you're still delivering, I think especially with a show like The Flair, you still want to keep it casual and like conversational
Yeah.
to the point where it's not too fancy, because you will drive off your audience. I think we can relate in class if you're watching some kind of like no hate to Crash Course, but if it's like a too wordy like fancy
Yeah, for sure.
vocabulary video, people get bored and you like your audience may drift off into like space. But
yeah.
definitely like, you know, keep it simple and straightforward. Again, always check your information and accurate. Like I was mentioning with anchors, know what you're talking about. You don't want to mess up a segment maybe on like, again, like a tradition. You're talking about a
someone's
religion,
culture,
nationality, someone's culture,
sure.
and like, you know, that can get that can get offensive because you're the one in charge of spreading news, and if you did a bad job, like, you know, you did a bad job,
Yeah.
like, you messed up. And just like have an engaging script. I think especially with anchors, something I love to put into my scripts are phrases, something to kind of like grab that attention, that hook
Yeah,
like you would
for
put in an
sure.
essay,
Yeah.
that hook within a script. I love starting off scripts with like, I think we had a themed spring show for The Rise.
Yeah.
And I was like, and welcome back to this blooming edition of The Rise. Like those little adjectives, or
Yeah.
if it's like a Halloween, some spooky phrases.
I also
this
think
and
that helps like the audience kind of visualize. So like what you're saying right now, like the blooming. If you use those little words, you're gonna like kind of like put yourself there and imagine like flowers or whatever it is. And that it's like, even we learned that in our English classes here in school, like imagery. There's like certain words that are used that kind of help you have this picture in your mind, and it's the same when you're anchoring. If you're using what you were saying before, if you're using all these fancy words, people are
Yeah.
gonna get lost in the information that you're trying to deliver. So
Definitely like would recommend, and I'm a big fan of puns. Look up certain ones. Like I love puns within a script. That's like interactive.
yeah,
especially.
it might seem corny, but it just like makes it.
It's fun. And for school, like kids, like it's kind of hard to like be all like newsy and like you'll lose that attention, like that grasp from students. They love the entertainment segment. So that's something to not kind of like note that, okay, they love like those fun little touches of a script. But definitely I'd say we love to stay casual. Like I think the show, we've learned throughout the years how like it's just something like conversational related, like like being able to be relatable to the students. So yeah, we love to keep it conversational yet informational, which is something very vital. So
Yeah.
I think that can wrap up this writing segment. I hope you guys took away some important tips and advice, and let's roll to the next one.
Yes. And to end off the last segment of the day, today we're going to talk about our segment called The Challenge, which focuses directly on competitions and what we do kind of in these competitions that we go to. So SCN, FSPA, and we are going to talk about specifically today Crazy 8, because that's just a really big part of like when we use anchoring and stuff. Crazy 8 is basically an 8-hour competition during SCN where there's different categories. And one of the ones that we compete in is News Magazine. So that is just an 8-minute show with a bunch of different segments. We have packages. We have
Sports.
We did sports last year for the first time. We have
main anchor
entertainment
shots.
segments. We have different segments to like a normal like news show. But one of the most important things, obviously, are the anchors on screen. So last year, Danesha got to anchor during this competition, and it is a process for everyone, for the production crew, for the producers, for the editors, but especially for the anchors, because they're the ones that are giving the stories, are tossing to every
The
segment.
face of the show.
Yeah,
in
they're
a way.
basically what we talked
Yeah.
about in the beginning, the face of the show. So would you kind of want to start off
Yeah.
what that was like
So-
from the beginning process of it?
So shout out to Steph. She graduated, but shout out to Steph for like
We love you, Steph.
We were troopers. We were actually troopers. Like I think my first like even like hint of like Crazy 8 was just our first practice. Like we practiced, and it was just like wow. Like
Yes.
you have to like restart an idea every single time, and it really does fall into you because you're delivering the message of like the show and like the theme. So definitely anchors carry that responsibility of the show. I
sure.
think scripts like with someone else is also something that is tedious. You want to get everyone's like ideas like with time to know how you're going to transition from one task to another. You want to know like your location. You want to know what are the vibes,
Yeah.
especially the theme of a show. You want to know like how to tie it all in together to make the show look smooth.
Yeah,
To not make it
for
so
sure.
like, this, and it's something that
It's hard.
it's hard.
Super hard. Yeah.
It's hard, but I learned in a way to kind of think fast.
Yeah.
Um,
Because, for
Yeah.
example, here during school, like on our day to day, we do shows every week. We have our daily shows, which we don't do anymore because we're seniors, but we did both our sophomore and junior year, and we have the Rise, which is an every week thing, and we're both anchors for both of those shows, or we were for the Flare, and now we're anchors for the Rise. And with that, you have an entire week to write a script. You know your location. We live in Miami. You know your audience. We're here. Versus you're going into a location that you know nothing about.
Yeah.
You're going with only 8 hours for the entire show. The entire show needs to be filmed, planned, edited, all in those 8 hours. So mind you, it's not that you have 8 hours to film. You have
probably like an hour like less to be submitted and like
Yeah.
revised. So it's
you have an
really
hour
7.
to like write and plan your script. You have like probably like an hour and a half ish to film your anchor shots, and you have to find a location. Like it's really so much stress to
It
produce
gave me
a show.
hint of what crazy it was. Yeah. But I would like to say that I think after we wrote a script, we literally revised it on our way to the location to film. Like it was something that once the script was done, we looked over it. We wanted to like see how like smooth it was. We like revised it because pronunciation can really mess up the timing of someone.
Yeah.
We love to use the phrase one take wonder. Not everyone's a one take wonder, and it really comes like with practice to be a one take wonder. But it's like knowing how to pronounce certain words. There's like some transitions into another sentence where it's like it doesn't really roll off the tongue good.
Yeah,
and,
that's
like,
another thing with writing your scripts and knowing is that you have to practice it out loud, because it's one thing to see it written and have it written down, and then another thing is to like actually be saying and pronouncing those words. So if it's like maybe a word that like something that like I get confused sometimes, like when reading scripts and I don't write my own script, let's say someone else wrote it for me, is like the T's and the S's, like university, like that, those kind of, there's like little words that I feel like everyone has like their own thing. And like if you know already kind of like how you are and like what those little things are that like maybe you can switch in your scripts, like you have to keep that in mind. Like it's not just like gonna be written, you're gonna be speaking it out loud.
I always say that like to all my anchors, revise the scripts, read the words, like read it. Like if you can't like pronounce a word, you change it. It's like if it's a word, you can change it. Of course, it's not gonna
for sure.
change the whole message of a script.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
definitely like that's something I always recommend, especially if your script you didn't write it. But think something that helped after was I think teleprompters. When we talk about teleprompters and like how
Yes.
vital they are.
Yeah, let's talk
program.
about the equipment a little bit, about what we use during the production. So we usually have a production team that goes with the anchors. So we have the producer of the show there filming the anchor shots. We have both of our anchors. We have we need people holding reflectors. We need people to do audio. We need people to be on top of everything. So
it is
kind
such
of-
a tedious
yeah.
like job. Like the production crew goes
Yes.
crazy. Like I remember, I think a memory with another FPTV alumni, Lucas. Shout out to Lucas. We did not have a bench. We were like in the beach, and we didn't have like a seat. And I think we were getting in trouble with like a lifeguard or something because he was standing on like a beach chair and he had to rent them out. It was a whole thing. So what he did to get the right shot with the reflector, he built his own little like bench with the sand.
Oh
like he
my God.
molded like a mountain to stand
to
on
stand
it.
on.
So it's like the commitment to
my
these like
God.
things to get the right
Yes.
shot, the right lighting. It's just it's something like it's funny
Yeah.
to think of, but it's just like a hassle.
And especially
with,
with
that,
anchor shots, I think you'd think that it's just like the anchors and maybe the person behind the camera, but there's so many other people that like
Yeah. That
you
contribute
need.
to it.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah.
and without them, like there's no shot. There's absolutely no anchor shot. You need a good production crew. That's
Yeah.
something that's really important. And we want to have another episode where we talk more about like producing shows, which is a totally different like phenomenon.
yeah.
But for just today, focusing more on anchoring, talk a little bit about what it was like with the teleprompter and stuff.
I think it's kind of like people's preference, but I've had the teleprompter app before, especially with live shows. The teleprompter app doesn't know how fast you're talking, doesn't know how fast you can read. It's something like not to hate on the teleprompter app, but it'll sometimes like it'll gab my stories and like it like will mess it up. Whether versus Google Docs, you know, you already have like your spaces, like the pauses, you know, like the format. So what I like to do is either a phone, but the phone can be a little hard if you're like outside, like in a beach, like we were for like Crazy 8. But like if it's like if you're in a building or like with good light, I'd use a phone.
Yeah.
I think I'm not that blind to like see from far, but some people,
I'm so blind.
yeah, some people,
so blind.
It'll be a laptop that you
them,
need. It'll be a laptop.
I always tell them like, please make my text bigger. I literally can't read that like, and it gets hard.
I prefer someone to scroll for me and know my pace. Like after one or two tries, they know how fast you read, how slow.
Yeah.
So I like someone else scrolling it for me. I like you can adjust like the sizes and everything. So teleprompters, like love them. Just like I would like them manually more. I like manually.
You know, actually, talking about teleprompter during the summer where I went to UM, I did a program at UM focusing on journalism and broadcast, and we did a live show. And the teleprompter is like in I guess like in all news stations, they have like a little like rolly thing that kind of like tracks the speed. So you have a person physically sitting down there, kind of like moving it back and forth. Like if you're talking faster, they move it faster. If you're talking slower, they move it slower. But with the app, it's harder because it's just automatic.
Yeah, it's
but
hard.
obviously we have a teleprompter that kind of goes on top of the camera, and we don't have that like scrolling thing. It's just an app that like automatically does it. So sometimes it's better to have someone to just manually scroll, like with the timing of like
to
how
know
you're
your
talking.
speed. Yeah. I think I'm looking forward to, especially because I want to work in like this field. I'm looking forward to those like little steps under the desk. I don't know if every news station has them, but I've seen that like there's some places where you can step under the desk of like
for it to go faster.
For the speed, like
it's
on
crazy.
Like,
to have, like,
so it can go on your speed and like timing for scripts. So I think that can wrap up our little experience with Crazy 8. There's definitely more we could have gone into, but this is just a hint of like how anchoring went for us and for me, and you know, just like things to like think of.
Yeah, with anchoring especially. I think Crazy 8, we need to have like a Crazy 8 episode because Crazy 8 is
it's crazy. It's literally crazy.
It literally is, but with anchoring, I think that kind of covers like more of like the basics of it. Anchoring is something that again takes practice. It's not easy to just go in front of the camera and speak. I think for us, like starting off, it was something that like it took practice. Like at first we were super tense on camera and we had like it's
and
just
we
hard.
stuck to that professional good evening.
Yes,
like that
like the little like hands and
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Overall, Crazy 8 is kind of crazy, and I hope like any newbies or people interested to maybe start competing that didn't get to compete last year in STN kind of get the gist of like how crazy it is, the hassle, how tedious like things are, and just like the commitment and effort you need to give.
And I think with time, you kind of get used to being on camera. You get used to just you get more natural with it. At first, like I remember our sophomore year, like it took us time to like let loose and be able to just like
not be tense and be so formal, but
it takes time, it takes confidence, and it takes practice. That's the most important thing. So if this is something that you want to do, I think our biggest advice would be to just keep practicing, keep doing it. Like any opportunity you have to anchor, do it. And that's kind of it for today's episode. I think that kind of wraps it up.
Make sure to follow us on all the social media at Fiber TV if you haven't.
Yes, and stay on the lookout for another episode coming in about 2 weeks. The schedule for the podcast is going to be like kind of like a bi-weekly. So every 2 weeks we're going to be releasing an episode. And this was a really fun topic to talk about because we both love anchoring.
We hope you guys got like something out of this
tips,
podcast. But we love like doing this and like letting people know in the journalism world about our experience and like just helping you guys out.
And it'll be fun to look back at this, like if we do pursue this like in the future to look back at. But that wraps up for today's episode. We hope that you guys enjoyed and that you guys come back for another episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.